Logan here, VIP Boxing down at Paulie's gym. In fact, not just Paulie's gym, your dad's gym in Cheetham Hill. And you're one of those really, really interesting stories, Mario. Yeah, that's another thing I always want to get right, because your alias, your ring name is Super Mario, but it's spelled as in Mario, but your name isn't spelled Mario.
Yeah, it's not spelled like that, but the way you pronounce it is Mario, so it's a lot easier for people to say Mario. Right,
good, because I always keep thinking I'm getting it wrong, and I get most people's names wrong, but but I met you before you even started boxing. You used to tag along with your dad down at the gyms, and your dad used to help out at Bridgewater Amateur Boxing Club, which was my old amateur gym, and my good mate runs it there, Lee Whitehead. And I used to see you there, and you were, don't get angry with me, but you were a chubby little kid.
Nah, most definitely.
And didn't look like a fighter, didn't look like you were ever going to be a fighter. And then, what was it, about 15 you said to your dad?
Yeah.
You won a box. And how long was it from when you said that to your dad that you actually had your first amateur fight?
From the moment I said to my father that I wanted to start fighting, and when we had our first fight, it was about a good year.
Yeah.
A good year. A year gap, because we spent, first I got battered, and then we'll
have to talk about that, because your dad, he doesn't take it easy on you, does he? And he thought, if you want to do this, you're going to do it properly.
Yeah.
And your dad was one of the main coaches down at Pat Barrett's Moston and Colliers, and they had some great amateurs there. And he put you in with 3 of the really, really good amateurs, a few of them being national champions. And it's fair to say you got your ass kicked.
No, most definitely I did. I got a good hiding that day.
And but what your dad said to me was, when you got in the car afterwards, he thought, right, this is it now. I've took that silly idea out of his head, and he's going to say, oh, I want to go do basketball or something else. And your dad said to you, are you coming back tomorrow? And you went, yeah. No arguments, nothing. He said, that's it, I'm coming back.
No, because like I said, for many years before I even started boxing, I thought to myself, I felt like a coward within myself in everything that I put myself in life, whether it be relationships, friendships, tasks, goals. I used to put myself in this little coward bubble so I wouldn't push myself to go as far as I wanted to. And then after I got that hiding from everyone at the gym, I thought to myself, like, am I going to do this again and be a coward and just shy away from it and move on and accept what happened? Or am I going to stand up and change something? So I thought, you know what, let me stick with this and see it through, and it worked.
And I believe later on you got to avenge that ass kicking.
Yes, I did.
And you got in with those kids again, who are getting vastly more experience than you. But you managed to put it right and redeem yourself. How long did that take to happen from when you first barred them to when you was holding your own with them?
That was about a year as well.
Yeah?
That was about a year. When we was training, my main mindset, my goal from the moment we started training was to turn pro.
Yeah.
Amateurs is something that I thought as it's going to help me along the way to become a good pro.
But just a stepping stone.
Exactly, stepping stone. So in my head I thought, okay, as I'm training, mindset, to be a great pro, you need to turn pro in 3 years' time, So when I trained with the most correct technique, always trying to perfect my technique, always trying to make sure I was better than the day before. So that's why it only took a year for me to then dish out what was getting given to me. Just because of the mindset.
Fair to say, you're obsessed, because you've just walked in before I was setting up the camera, and you spoke to your dad, and the first thing you said was, Dad, you've got to watch this guy. I watched him last night. I think Sandy Sadler, who's a former world champion himself a few years, quite a few years, back in the 50s, wasn't it?
1946 to 1958.
Yeah, well, like you say, you're becoming a real historian of boxing. And I also think that's, you know, when you love boxing, I think it makes you a better fighter. Because you watch these guys, and they bring out this emotion in you while you're watching them. And I think that makes you want people to feel the same way that you feel about when you watch boxing. That when people watch you, that's the way they feel.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this kid. Oh, I like this kid. They get people excited, and I think you're doing that because 7-0 is a pro now.
Yep, 7-0.
3 stoppages.
3 stoppages.
And the stoppages that you've got are against men that don't normally get stopped. You know, they are the, you know, we expect you to be in. But very rarely do they stop. I think, not your last time out, but the time before that, you stopped Dale Harrismith. I think he's on 125 fights now or something like that. I think he's been stopped 7 times in those 100 and odd losses. And prior to that, I think one of your first stoppages was against a kid I really love watching, Jake Bray. Jake Bray is so much fun to watch because his game, he gives you a real fight, doesn't he?
He does,
or tries to give you a real fight.
He brings the pressure to you.
He does. And but unfortunately, he had to succumb at the end of the second round. He couldn't come out for 3 and 4, which is a big testament because it's very hard to make him stay on the stool. And you would have only been 19 years old, would you?
Just turned 20.
And he was a man, you know, so it's all hard. And then another one of your victories, I think it was your 4th fight, you fought a kid called Jordan Granham. Now, Jordan was arguably one of the best men on the circuit as a journeyman. And he's a journeyman that can get in with debutants and do a job. Or, if you're, let the bell go, if you're ready for a step up and a real test, he's the man that can do that for you as well. And I've become really good friends with him, and I speak to him quite a lot. He's fought on our shows umpteen times, and I phoned him up to ask him what you were like, because I remember you this little kid, you know. And I was surprised because you'd stopped Jake Bray. You know, I think he was your second stoppage, Jordan Granham. I'm thinking, these kids don't get stopped by, you know, a novice, because 14 amateur fights, wasn't it?
14 amateur fights, yeah.
And he, you know, he said to me, one of the best prospects I've ever been in with. And when you consider he was a top amateur himself, you know.
He had a couple of nationals, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he was Southern Area champion on a few occasions. I think he won his first 26 fights as an amateur.
That's impressive.
You don't win 26 fights on the bounce if you're not good.
Yeah.
But he was very, very, very fortunate on that night, and he admits it, because you hurt him at the end of the second round, and fortunate for him, there was a leak. There was a leak in the building which stopped the third round from continuing straight away, which gave him time to recover, which meant he seen it to the end of the round. So, but when he said that to me, what everyone's been saying to me, I knew was true, because you are a genuine top prospect. Is that good to hear? Or do you know that?
A part of me wants to say I knew this already,
Yeah.
but then I don't want to come across, I don't want to present myself in an image that comes across arrogant when I'm grateful for everything I've learned, because I've learned off my father, I've learned off my peers, I've learned off other fighters, so I can't really just say, yeah, I already knew it was there, but I manifested it. Every day I wake up, I tell myself I need to be better than I was yesterday. I watch old school fighting to improve my game. I speak to my peers tell me how good I am. I watch fights, I look at social media, people tell me how good I am. And my mindset and the way I talk to myself and the way I convince myself, I already knew it, because I told myself before it even started that I'm going to be the next prospect.
Well, going right, I think I filmed you about 4 times in your 14 amateur fights, and I gave you a copy of them yesterday. Have you managed to watch any of them?
I managed to put them in, but I need to download them as soon as I get back.
Right, well, I was going to say, have you watched yourself, and have you seen big improvements from what you did then, or can you remember back to your amateur days?
I've got one clip, I'll try and find it and send it to you, of me when I was fighting my first ever amateur fight. It was a skills bout against one of Mike Jennings' lads, Harvey Riley, I think it is.
Right.
Hope he's okay. And I was at club, the Vassar Club.
Yep.
It was 7 p.m. on the dot. First skills bout, hopped in, super confident. Watched it back and I'm just thinking, that looks so disgusting. And I'm thinking, I thought I was the guy back then. But then this is the mindset that you need to always you need to be your #1 biggest fan. Like back then, that's who I was. I was constantly bigging myself up, Even in the ring when I'm getting given instructions, I'm going, yeah, I got it. And I'm doing it and I'm thinking, wow, but look at my technique, it's shocking in that video. My speed was poor. Everything wasn't how it is now.
Yeah.
But the fact that I used to believe in myself is what made them fights look the way they did and made me improve to the skill set I did.
So there's been a massive, massive improvement from when you first put your lace gloves on to where you are now. Is there still a lot more to come? Are you seeing that? Because I always say your first 10 pro fights, and you're not far from that now, you know, hopefully on May the 10th you're going to be on our show, that's why I'm chatting to you. You're going to move to 8-0. But have you seen big increments in improvements from your first fight to where you are now? Because, well, go on, answer that question first.
Most definitely, because I don't do training, like, see how a lot of fighters do like 8 weeks, 6 weeks training camps, where they devote 6 weeks to just the training. I'm in there all the time. So if I'm in there all the time, eventually I'm gonna learn something new. If you stand outside a barbershop long enough, you'll get a haircut. Same thing here. And I feel like me and my father are so perfectionists. We're always looking for perfection. Even though we both know perfection doesn't exist, we still chase it. So in that sense, we're always going to be improving, because when I'm popping the jab, not perfect yet. Got to increase it, got to upgrade it somehow. What about that shot? What about that movement? So there's never an end goal, because there's always somewhere to improve. There's always somewhere to gain a bit more attributes into your skill set. So by chasing perfection, we're going to keep improving.
When you feel like you know it all, it's time to retire.
Most definitely.
So, as long as you keep learning. But it seems like you're learning really well and really, really fast. I mean, I've been watching you today with your dad, and I say, you know, I like coming down to watch all your lads that your dad trained, because we've got Mania, who's going to be fighting this weekend.
We've got Conor Ward, who's on May 10th too.
Yeah, on the same night as you, isn't it? But what I like is seeing the improvements. And I filmed Mania when he was an amateur as well. And he's only been with your dad, what, about 18 months now, hasn't he? Mm-hmm. Just over a year into his pro game. And massive improvements. And he was a good amateur, but he's developing into a real fight-friendly fighter, you know. It's exciting to watch.
That's what the trust and belief in Paulie does. What I like about my coach, and this is not me bigging him up, this is just me in awe of his mindset himself. And he doesn't just teach us what he knows, he teaches what he researches and what he learns. So if my coach is always improving and learning, then how can I never? If he's growing, I'm growing.
Well, like I said, I loved it this morning. You came in, and it's normally the coach that's telling you to go and research someone and watch. And you're just constantly doing that now. And not only are you researching the art of boxing and the art of the way fighters go about it, but I love, you know, we sit and chat quite a lot when we come in here with you. And you think about the whole process, not just about what you're doing and the training methods, but the way you go about it in your thought processes. And for a young man, you think like an old man. You know, you're quite wise for a 22-year-old.
Well, you become wise when you realise you know nothing. So everything becomes a lesson.
Yeah, well, you say everything right. I'm genuinely looking forward to this show. We've got a great little card. We're back at the Hideout in Bolton. I don't know if you've ever been there before. It's a great little venue, but we've got some quality kids on there. We've got obviously yourself there. We've got another very, very talented amateur who's doing brilliant as a pro now, Jacob Rowe. Mm-hmm. We expect him to go a long way. His stablemate, Tom Berry, again, exceptional amateur, and we believe he'll go a long way. Obviously, you was on there, and we've got two kids making their debut. One was a very good amateur, Joe McGuinness. Mm-hmm. We expect him to go a long way. And I don't know too much about the young lady, but she's a bundle of fun, and she's so enthusiastic. So I'm excited to see what she can do. So I think we're in for a bit of a treat on May the 10th, right?
And thank you for Steve Wood for putting the show together and not allowing me to also improve my skill set and add my experience and time in the ring, but also giving my supporters what they want, which is entertainment. So I appreciate that massively.
Well, that's what we've got to get back to, because when you first started pro, everything went perfect for you. Like I said, you know, you picked up a couple of good stoppages against men that don't get stopped. You had 5 fights in the space of about 14 months. And then suddenly the ball stopped rolling, and you were struggling to get out. I think in 2024 last year, only the 1 fight, that was a stoppage against Dale Harris-Smith. But this year, everything seems to be going fairly well. In fact, you went on the, was it a boxer show? I think, was it a boxer show?
Yeah, boxer show.
It was in Sheffield, and we was down there because we had Mickey Ellison fighting Billy Dennis. And you had a big step up, mate, a big step up against another kid who was another genuine prospect. And considering it was only your 7th fight, it doesn't happen that often, mate. It doesn't happen that often. But because you're fighting on the big stage and you're managed by Chris Eubanks Jr., which we'll get onto later on, you're aware that you're not going to get easy fights when you're fighting on the big stage.
Of course.
So this is why we're getting you out on May the 10th, because I believe you're out a few weeks later on a big show. And you just want to make sure that if the opponent comes and it's like the last one, you're better prepared for it.
Got to make sure that every time we step in the ring, there's no stone unturned. So Steve Woods gave me the opportunity to increase my game, correct my game, and while I'm in the ring, that's what I'm going to be doing, while having fun.
And how did you find that then? Because, like you say, you beat the usual suspects, you're 6-0, you go in with a kid who's 6-2, who's proven to be a real danger threat since he fought you, actually. But it was a tough fight. It was a tough fight, which he came through. I think it was 59, 55, wasn't it? So you just dropped the single round. But how did you find that? Did you like that more? Because you had a guy that was thrown with you, mate.
It felt great having someone that had that fire to win.
Yeah.
Because the fact they're trying to counteract me, now I can go, okay, let's play. Now it's a game of chess. Yeah. What move are you making? What 2 steps am I making? Now I've got to predict what move. Now it becomes a game to me. Like I said, boxing is art. Everyone's got their own canvas. It's up to them how they're going to draw it, what colours they're going to use, how they're going to bring it to life. So by me having a prodigy and a prospect fighting me, made me feel in a way I can showcase my skills more. I can actually now slowly break down a fighter and show that I'm here for the long run. Because I do believe that I'm an elite level fighter. Yeah. The way I think, the way I practice, the way I speak it into existence, I am an elite fighter. So by me fighting prospects and me fighting these step up fighters that they're putting me in with, just showcase what I'm saying is true.
Yeah. Going back to what we said before then, how did I think it was your 2nd fight you was telling me, how did you get picked up by Chris Eubanks?
So literally it was word of mouth, and they watched my 2nd fight against Gennady, said they were pretty impressed. My reaction, my power, the way I controlled the ring, the way I maneuvered around the ring and showed ring IQ. Even though having only 2 fights and 14 amateur fights, they thought, wow, yeah, that's a bit crazy how he's gone from that much experience, but he's performing like this. And when I went to literally a couple months just before, when me and Lyndon went to America, we went San Francisco to train with Virgil and her. And we were training with Boazzi at the time. Hope Boazzi is okay, God bless him and his family. And it was him and Lyndon that both spoke to Chris and went, listen, got a good fighter, watch out for this one. And then they've done the research on me, brought me down to Brighton to do some sparring with Kev Newman and Andrew Murphy, 2 fighters who are very big in America that train with Roy Jones Jr. Sparred them, and even Roy Jones Jr. himself was impressed by my skill set, and he was impressed by... That was a
buzz for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a buzz, because I thought, wow, I'm in a room with a legend. Now,
genuine legend.
Now it's up to me to put on a performance that, if I can impress this legend with only 2 fights, it lets me know where I'm standing. Came out the ring, we spoke, he was very impressed, very, very shocked by what he saw. Asked if we wanted more work. We can always fly out to Florida, Miami, and go see them, train with them. And from there, I think that's when Chris knew, because Chris was down there watching the spar as well. I think that's when he knew, you know what, this kid needs to be signed. And I feel like me and Chris relate a bit because he can see glimpses of himself in me, of the animal being ferocious, not allowing no one to take what's off my plate, being the last man standing, making sure that my point is proven, and that every time I do make any type of moves or any action I do in the ring, that it's like I'm proving a point. So everything's got meaning in it. So I feel like that's where we get a good bond. And in a spiritual way, we understand each other. Like, we can look at each other's energies and we just understand each other a lot.
Yeah, listen, I'm genuinely looking forward to it. Like I say, we've got a quality lineup there with 3 genuine top prospects who I think are all going to go a long way. The 2 kids making their debuts, which is always good fun because they always bring a big crowd. So I'm looking forward to May the 10th, and I'm looking forward to seeing you hopefully move to 8-0. Will that be right?
Yes,
Will you
sir.
be moving to 8-0?
Most definitely.
Right, well listen, any predictions on your performance then? Because we've no idea, because you've only just been added to the show, so we've no idea of an opponent. We're not even sure whether it's going to be a 4 or a 6. It's just to make sure that what comes next you're even better prepared for. But as you said, you visualise everything before. So what have you visualised for this fight and this performance?
I've visualised nothing apart from excellency. In my head, I always envision everything, especially what's going to go on in the ring. And with me, it's not about getting the win, because the win's already guaranteed in my mind. It's about how I win. If he does this move, how am I going to counter that move? If he brings these type of moves to the table, how am I going to counteract those type of moves? So what you can see on May 10th, my prediction for that fight is you can see a lot of IQ, a lot of thinking going on, but a lot of action, and most definitely entertaining. Because my main thing is, as long as the supporters are getting their money's worth, and I'm bringing exactly what I say I'm delivering to the table, which is nothing apart from a showcase that's destined for greatness. Once they sit down and they've watched that fight, they will be able to go home 2-3 years from then. They'll still remember that fight that you watched on Steve Wood's show on May 10th against Mario. I
think that's a perfect way to go about boxing, because it's like I say, it's about making people smile, about making them go, oh, I like that kid. And you know what's important is there'll be a lot of other people who bought tickets, not from you, but to go and see the other kids.
Most definitely.
And the next time they see your name, they want to be going, I like that kid, I'm going to watching him. And if you can take another 20 or 30 fans.
About. If you look at, like, why do we even look at any of the old school fighters to this day? We still go on about them and we keep their names alive because of how entertaining they were.
Yeah.
Marvin Hagler and Thomas Hearns only went, what, 2.5 rounds?
Yeah, what magic 2.5
that's still
rounds.
talked about as the best fight to this day.
Yeah.
And it's still kept alive.
Yeah.
And they're both old, they're both retired,
but
it's still talked about to this day. That's what I want to make a difference. That's where I want to do the exact same thing. I want to put on performances that in 100 years' time, people will be researching me to learn the techniques that me, my colleagues, my coach, what we was going through, and connecting us to even older fighters. So now we become part of boxing history. It's not about just being part of boxing and getting your money and getting out and retiring whenever you can. It's not about using the sport. It's about making your name remembered in the sport. It's about legacy.
Yeah.
And that's what I care about, legacy.
Well, we'll leave it on that, and I'm looking forward to that on May the 10th, down at the Hideout, and like I say, on a quality card. And you've got me excited, mate. So I'll see you on the 10th.
See you on the 10th.
Take care, mate. Bye.
Take care.
For all boxing info, news and latest interviews, amateur and pro, across the north, click and subscribe. VIP Boxing Promotions. Also, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook.